We all long for happiness. It's the thing we most dream for.
Hail to the altruistic revolution. Let's go for it.
Now the first exercise is just going to get us ready for the big finale.
So before we rush off into afternoon tea and eat all of those good foods that we now know are going to improve our health, I'd like to try and provide a bit of a different perspective on leadership and creating movements by looking at the role of the followers and those who support. Now, some of you might recognise this guy from a TED Talk a while back that an American guy called Derek Sivers gave on, some people nodding down here, that's good. I wish I could just play this, it would be great. But I've taken a few photos from there to give you an idea of what goes on. He uses a video captured at a music festival to give an insight and introduce the perspective of the first follower. Now the video starts with this guy here, dancing all alone, up on his own, on the hill overlooking a music festival, shirt off, erratically to the beat of his own drum, not giving a care in the world about what anyone else thinks around him. Before too long, the first follower comes to join him. The first follower is invited in to the group. They dance together, they keep going wild, they don't care what's going on. And before too long, there are 50 of them dancing there all on their own, more people involved in this movement than there are on the sidelines. And I think when you use this video and look at this concept, you see the power and the role that the first follower and the supporters can play in driving momentum and creating change once that initial spark has been lit by the leader. As Derek very well puts it in his TED Talk, the first follower is what turns the lone nut into a leader. And so I'd like to share some of the stories of the first followers who are helping to create a movement right here in Australia right now of young people who are trying to smash the stigma surrounding mental health and encourage young people to get support when they need it. Thank you. Good shout out. But before I get into the stories of the followers, I think it's probably good for me to give you a bit of an insight into the leader or the lone nut, depending on how you look at it. Back in 2008, Sebastian Robinson was at uni down in Canberra. He was studying finance. He was the captain of the footy team. He was the president of his college. He had it all going right. But behind closed doors, there was a very different journey being played out. Stress and pressure, sleepless nights, depression, severe depression that led Seb to try and take his own life on multiple occasions. And nobody knew a thing. Seb did not speak to anyone about what he was going through because of the stigma and the shame that he felt. After an eventful night where Seb actually ended up in the cell at a police station, he was finally pushed to go and get the support that he needed. Once he was able to receive that support, Seb went on to finish university and go into the workforce. And he started to think what would have made a difference to his journey. He realised that if he had heard from somebody that was like him, who had been through similar challenges but had been able to get support, then it would have made it okay for him to do the same. And so that's what he did. He went out and started to share his story back at his old school and back at the university. In 2011, Seb started the organisation batyr, a for-purpose organisation focused on smashing the stigma surrounding mental health and empowering young people to get support when they need it. Now, when you think of university students, some of the words that might come to mind are things like lazy, entitled, privileged, drunks, sex, drugs, if you get a little bit crazy. But these 5 guys here decided to flip those stereotypes on their head. They were so inspired by Seb's story when they heard him share it that they decided to run over 350 Ks from Civic in Canberra to Bondi Beach in Sydney over 2.5 days to raise awareness and funds for batyr. These guys decided to go against the status quo, to go and join the leader dancing up on the hill, to try and gain and build momentum around a cause and a concept because they could see the potential that it had for positive change. These 5 here have since left university, but Civic to Surf is the event that they've created. It's now in its 6th year. There are over 100 students that run it every year in relay. It's raised over $100,000 for batyr to be able to run programs, and has also encouraged university students from other unis to create similar events and join together in that momentum and help drive the movement. These guys have also helped batyr create a structured university program that now delivers positive messages throughout the university campus, and they've been able to replicate that in 4 other universities around the country as well. This here is a man that for the last 15 years was responsible for the discipline and the well-being of students at an all-boys school in Sydney. On top of this, he had to manage the well-meaning parents, the curriculum-focused teachers, as he tried to support and develop these young boys. Each and every week, somebody would come into his office with the next big thing to help boys grow strong and smart. A glossy brochure left on his desk that he'd have to determine who should come in and who should not be let in. In 2011, after Seb had started batyr, he went to see Sam DeSarno to tell him that he'd like to come back to his old school and share his real life experience with mental ill health. Now you can imagine 6 years ago how difficult that decision would have been for a school leader. But Sam believed in Seb, and he made the bold decision to let Seb come in and share his story and his experience with the Year 10 boys at the time. Since then, batyr's been back to the school each and every year to run programs with the students from Year 9 through to Year 12, and have also engaged the parents in the conversation through open forums. There's also a group of student leaders who drive the initiatives and events throughout that school campus to engage everyone in the conversation. But they're also doing things, learning the skills and capabilities, to look after their own well-being and look out for their mates. Sam has actually recently left the education system and has joined batyr full-time now to try and get us into more schools around the country. The next story here is about a beautiful regional town called Cobar. And for those of you who don't know where Cobar is, it's about 8 hours that way, directly west from here, 8 hours from here. Now in Cobar, it's known as a mining town. They mine copper and gold. It's around 5,000 people, but most people know Cobar because there's a great highway that runs you straight into it and then straight out onto the next big town that you're trying to get to. The community of Cobar, however, though, a beautifully warm and welcoming, supporting, resilient group of people, resilient community. Sadly, though, they've been through far too much heartache than any one community deserves. The Robinson family, after feeling the impacts of mental ill health and suicide for young people, and the negative impact that was building, or the negative feeling that was building within their community, wanted to do something differently about it. One night, as they were sitting on the couch watching the ABC, they happened to see a story of a batyr speaker. And so they reached out to this Sydney-based youth-led organisation to see if they could get them out to Cobar. To be honest, when the guys at batyr received this call, they had no idea where Cobar even was. But the persistence and commitment of the Robinson family to support their local community motivated them to jump in the car and head out there and start developing and organising an open community forum to have a conversation with everyone together about mental health. They had no idea what to expect. It was a new community that were building new relationships. They happened to plan the community forum on a rainy Tuesday night, so expectations were pretty low. But Cobar, living up to what it's known for as a resilient and supportive community, managed to pack out the local bowling club to invite everyone into this conversation so that they could start changing what was happening and what they were noticing within their communities, within their friends and their family. Since then, batyr has been able to run programs in the local high school for the students and then run professional development for teachers. The local community, each and every month, run a campaign called One Sock Wednesday, where they wear the bright batyr socks down the whole main street of Cobar to show everyone that they're open and willing to have these conversations and to support each other. And so the final story brings me back to me. Now, I was lucky enough to grow up in a beautiful, loving and supportive family in the inner west of Sydney, only about 20 minutes from here. My parents and the community around me supported me incredibly well and instilled a really strong set of values and beliefs in me. But besides all that, I did whatever I possibly could to try and throw it all away. Getting myself into trouble in school and with the law, abusing drugs and alcohol, and pretty much being pretty destructive for everyone involved. So years later, when Seb told me about his idea to run a workshop to train young people to share their lived experiences, I started to give it a bit of thought. Now, I've never been diagnosed with a mental illness myself, and so I wasn't quite sure if this workshop was right for me. But I thought, I've got a story. I've been through challenges, I've created challenges that I feel that other young people, if they heard about, would not have to go through those same things themselves. And so I went along. When I got there, I was joined by 10 other young people who were just as nervous as me. We were all incredibly apprehensive about what we'd signed up for. But over that 2-day workshop, we built an amazingly strong bond between us through the sharing of real-life stories and experiences. Stories that go on all around us, each and every day, but that we never actually hear or find out about because we're not willing to dig deep enough to have those real conversations. Stories that young guys shared about their lack of ability to use public transport because of the anxiety that built when there were too many people around them. Young girls who had eating disorders all throughout high school because of the pressure to be thin. Stories that need to be shared, but that aren't shared often enough. It was these stories shared through this safe and supportive environment that motivated me to want to do whatever I could to be a part of this. And so I managed to talk my way into a board director's position in 2013. And in 2015, I took over from the founder of the organisation, Seb, to be CEO, to try and prove that the lone nut in this story had a concept and a model that could be more than just his one powerful story, but become a platform for thousands of young people to share theirs as well. And so we've got a long way to go. We're incredibly proud of the 350 young people who have been through that same workshop since the one that I did 5 or 6 years ago to learn how to share their story in a safe and effective way. And on top of that, those young people have then gone out into schools and universities to share their stories of hope, of resilience and recovery with nearly 70,000 young Australians. But before I leave, I just wanted to bring you back to the issue at hand for young Australians. Now, you heard some of these stats from Michelle, but if you put it into a perspective of an Australian classroom, on average of 30 students, 7 will be suffering from a significant mental health issue. Of those 7, only 2 are getting the support that they need, which leaves 5 young Australians in every average Australian classroom suffering in silence. Now, why aren't they getting the help that they need? Stigma and shame are the number one barriers for help seeking. Now, we know that storytelling and peer-to-peer sharing of lived experience is an effective way to break down this stigma and increase help-seeking rates. So why don't we do more of it? And that's exactly what I'm here to share with you this afternoon. We all have a story that has the potential to make vulnerability and honesty the strength that it really can be and really should be. Let's join these people behind me here to share those real life experiences and those stories of our true selves, not just the ones that our Instagram filters are trying to make us become. Thank you very much.